Good morning.
Good morning.
How is your relationship with the neighboring villages?
Very
And with the concello, with the council?
very good, I hope. Yeah, very good, I hope. Let's see. It has taken a long time to establish the relationship that I now have with the local people, but I think that I have a very good relationship with certainly the people that live in the villages nearest here. I feel accepted and, if not completely integrated, then partially integrated into the local society. And I'm a councillor. That my relationship with the council is that of being a councillor.
Is this a very isolated place? What is the distance to other villages?
The nearest village is a bit less than 2 kilometres away. The nearest shops are in Latha, which is approximately 4 kilometres away. The village isn't as isolated as it was when we arrived. We now have a road, we now have street lights, and we have running water, and we have solar powered electricity in the houses, all of which was put in place by ourselves. So.
Did you have any important problems with the institutions?
It's a bit like wading through treacle. We never had any... I couldn't prove that they ever tried to get in our way, although it often felt as though they were not very keen on helping us.
And was it easy to settle down in this abandoned village?
Yes, it was easy. I don't know if you can imagine that when we arrived, you couldn't see from where the camera is to where we are now because of the brambles. It took us about 2 weeks to find the house where we now live. So that was a problem, but it wasn't difficult to solve. The problem of integration was a little bit more difficult, because apparently the village was completely abandoned. But as we started cleaning the pieces of land, the owners of the land appeared, saying, "Oh, this is my land." I said, "Oh, good. Now I know it's your land." And this was also a problem, but it was never. We never thought it was a reason to not carry on.
And what were the main administrative difficulties?
When the first two drafts of the brochon of Latha didn't include this village didn't include this village, and so we did a lot of work to demonstrate that there was a village here. That was probably the most difficult and the most important administrative work that we've had to do.
Was it an odyssey to find the name of this house and its landowners? Because of the long time the properties have not been inhabited.
No, not very difficult. Because people presented themselves as owners. It's another question whether the people who presented themselves as owners were owners. Because of the property system here, people rarely register these kind of abandoned properties because of the cost. The cost of registering doesn't, well, it's not worth people's while registering abandoned properties because they have no value or very little intrinsic value. One of the houses where we live has two theoretical property lines, and we don't know today which is the true owner, although neither of the potential owners care that we live in their house. But to find out who is the real owner, you'd have to go to court, and it would cost more money to establish the owner than the house is worth.
And is it very expensive to get a home or a piece of land here?
These houses were not expensive. We paid, I think, 600 euros for 600 euros now. We paid approximately 1,200 euros for the properties that we live in, although they were not houses when we bought them.
And what about transport? Is it a handicap to come to Galician rural areas because of the poor condition of these roads?
It's not a problem here. The roads are not so bad. Maybe some places, yeah. Latha is not so very isolated. It's not as if we lived in Kamba or these places. That there are places which you have to steel yourself and say, okay, I'm going, and then go.
What can you tell us about your contact with your family in England? Do you often go to them?
I don't go very often because my job doesn't give me hardly any spare time. But my parents often visit, and once a year I take my daughters to England, so I get 3 days with my family.
And living in an isolated area is a serious problem for children. What do you think about this statement?
It's very true. My eldest daughter is 17. She probably will not have her 19th birthday here. Probably not. She will leave. My youngest daughter has the same problem, but I don't think it's. I don't think you can say that it is a problem caused by having come to live in an isolated place, because most of the villages in Latha at least have 1 or perhaps 2 school-aged children. So my children are no worse off than the local children. And the other thing is that we have tried hard to bring modern living to the village as much as possible. We connect to internet, we watch the television, have a shower, these kind of things.
We would like to ask you about the languages you speak. Do you often speak English, Spanish, Galician?
Yes. I often speak English to my children, and I often speak Castellano to people I don't know as well as the people I speak Gallego to. Yes. There aren't many people who speak English. And let's see, what else could I say? That it took me a long time to pluck up the courage to speak Gallego, a long time, because it seems to be quite a personal, the more personal way of communicating for people, and so I felt that it needed more respect. The Gallego needed more respect. That because I had to communicate, I could speak Castellano badly because I had to communicate, but I was not keen to speak Gallego badly. So, although there's no evidence that I speak it particularly well.
And how many languages do your daughter speak?
3. English, Gallego, and Castellano.
And questions about the economy. We guess that the change from a developed industrial economy to a self-sufficient one is a huge contrast.
Yes, I imagine so, yes.
So,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, the self-sufficient economy is a myth. I think it doesn't. You have to be a lot more special than I am to accept a self-sufficient economy today. We are not made for that life anymore. I think the last self-sufficient Gallegos are between 60 and 70 years old, and everybody after that has worked in a modernising economy. Here in Lath it started with the train line. The first work that most people had was with making the train line, and then the pine trees, planting the pine trees, and then after that, Marchaswith.
so did this actually change your way of life a lot?
I didn't move around so much. I don't move around so much as I used to. I never really incorporated myself into modern economy. I studied the first year of a systems engineering degree and then left England. And I travelled for 7 years making bracelets and playing a whistle, and then started to live here.
And on an abandoned village, what resources do you have, and is there anything you have to do without?
We don't have enough electricity to run a freezer. That's about it. And we've got lots of firewood.
Is your experience the solution to stop the population decline in these rural areas?
Oh. I would say no. recently I would say that people are less prepared to accept being this far away from modern centres. Maybe 20 years ago there were a lot of people living in abandoned villages, and it's certainly in Orense, in this province, it's a lot less than it used to be. People don't like it. Don't like getting cold. Don't like getting wet. Don't like having to think about where their water comes from or their electricity comes from. People don't like it. So my experience, I don't think, is it's not going to be statistically significant as an option.
And what differences do you see between rural and urban life?
It's a lot quieter. The society is much closer knitted. I feel as though the people are it's a safety net. The society will sustain you if you stumble in a rural area, whereas perhaps in an urban environment that would not happen. The society. Let's see. Well, okay. Perhaps we don't have as much access to social services, but we have a lot better access to our neighbours. Whereas perhaps urban people have better access to social services, but their neighbours don't care particularly.
Okay. Último turno. Habla.